Hello, everyone. Hello, viewers from all around the world, and welcome to the Happiness Summit 2022. My name is Amal Bendahby. In our panels, we'll be discussing how to boost your happiness and well being in different areas of life. Our topic for this panel is a very interesting topic, which is resilience, or we can say capacity to persist in the face of change or adapt successfully to challenges. To talk more about this critical subject, we have two very special and inspiring guests. We have Maheen Shafiabady and Kelly Suriol. Welcome, guys, and thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Hi.
So, can you briefly introduce yourself, including what drew you to positive psychology, and also how does positive psychology relate to your current field? I will start with Kelly Suriel.
Thank you. So I'm from positive psychology drew me professionally and personally. Being a project manager, you're constantly facing change and change is a BAU in our company. So how do we bring people along? How do you influence people without authority? And how do you make sure that people are feeling heard? That part of my job is to make sure that they trust you and they trust the change that you're taking them into. So you have to bring them with you, bring them along with you. And then from a personal perspective, having had some trauma in my life and watching people around me also suffering trauma, it's like you can see how different people react in different ways, and even how you may react in different ways to different things. So I was always just interested in how we can take the challenges or the hard times and learn to grow from them. So you change that post-traumatic stress into post-traumatic growth.
Very, very interesting. I will now ask you, Maheen, can you introduce yourself? And also, how does positive psychology relate to your current field?
Yeah, thank you, Amal. So currently, I am a leadership and wellness coach. I am also a leadership development facilitator for another organization, and I use positive psychology in both realms. Also, on the formal credibility side, I have a positive psychology master coach certificate, which Kelly and I know each other from. I also have a master's in organization development. When I think about positive psychology and reflect on what really drew me in, it was really this desire to deeply understand what's happening in the mind when we are challenged and what ways we can learn about that and then actually help ourselves, similar to what Kelly said, really help ourselves to navigate those challenges.
Okay. From your perspective, what is the definition of resilience and what are the different type of resilience? Can you tell me about this, Maheen?
Sure. So I would define resilience actually in the words of perhaps our mentor in positive psychology, Braco Povich. He says quite simply, it's the ability to bend without breaking when we're facing a challenge. To add more color to that, it's thinking about big life events, which is what most of us think of when we think of being resilient. But it's also those situational moments that can reoccur and even the day-to-day challenges that come up. The American Psychological Association actually says that it's both the process and also the outcome of successfully adapting in these adverse situations, taking into account our mental and emotional and even our behavioral adjustments, whether they're internal demands or external demands.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I will go to Kelly. What can you say about this?
I always feel that, to Maheen's point, you have the big T's and the small T's, the daily stuff, but it's just meeting adversity with curiosity, creativity, and optimism. It's like, what can I learn here? What is going on? Like if something's feeling a bit jarring, it's like what's the emotion beneath it? How are they feeling? Maybe they're reacting in anger. Anger is often very much a primary emotion. What's behind the anger? So it's like there's always an opportunity to learn and go a little bit deeper and to pivot actually. And then often it's just asking, how do you, like a simple question like how do you feel, because you're curious, you meet it with questions, right? So instead of what's the word, running away or retreating, you go into it further and try to explore it more. So to me that's what resilience is for me. And then you've got, people, you've got the physical, mental, emotional, and social. But I think if you work on the emotional, then all the other bits will fall into place.
Yeah.
And I also think, socially, we need to ask for help, and not be scared to ask questions. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to say you don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have, guys, do you know someone, or do you have a story or a person in mind that represents resilience? Can you? I will move to Maheen.
Sure. I love this question, and I thought long and hard about this because really, I'm sure I'm not the only one here that has many stories that I can think of, whether they're my own or someone that I know or care about. In this case, I'll share from my own life. I was living outside the US, and there came a time when it was the moment I had to move back. It was completely unplanned. It was a situation where I felt unsafe, and so it was a bit of a forced move. I came back to the US with no plan in mind and very little financial resources. But what I did have was a very strong social network. So, to Kelly's point, I really delved into being vulnerable with my loved ones. I was moving to a new place in the US, but I still had friends and a family member here who were of great support. I also really delved into physiological coping strategies. So, I started an exercise routine, which boosted my dopamine and therefore some feelings of happiness. And then another coping strategy that I recall from that time was changing my environmental cues. So while I had no financial resources, I did have two legs that could carry me around the neighborhood. And as I became more comfortable, I walked farther and farther and was able to find green spaces and even public transportation where I could get even farther to open up sort of the landscape of thinking as I was actually viewing new landscapes. And those all helped me to not only process the emotions of that time, but also seek my next steps in life. And now I've been where I am for nearly 14 years, not just living, but also thriving.
Okay. What about you, Kelly?
Well done. Well done for doing that. Big stuff.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't going from a personal perspective, but I was watching a documentary the other day about SpaceX and Elon Musk, and what they've achieved is like this crazy rocket ship. Like, I don't know if everyone remembers the Thunderbirds, when you would have rockets landing like vertically. It just looked like it would be impossible the way we knew physics to work previously. And these guys, I was watching a documentary, and their rockets kept exploding, right? It's like one explosion after another. And Elon Musk, he went all in, and he put all his money in, and they did it again. And now they've got these rockets that land on these tiny targets, like in the middle of the ocean, that are moving. And I don't know how many times they've made that happen, but it's just like, what is possible when you just believe in what you're doing and just have that, you just keep going like that. In the 60s, you could only imagine that, they've made literally fiction come true. And to me, that is like resilience on a much bigger scale. But that's what we are capable of. And, and previously, if you think in the 80s and 90s, it was all those spaceships going up, but the rockets going up, they weren't reusable. And he's literally changed the face of it. So to me, I found that really, really inspiring. Just going all in.
You have, guys, very inspiring stories, and you have a good example of resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, resilience is something that people can build themselves and their children also. And there are distinct steps that can lead to greater resilience. So can you tell us, and I will begin with Kelly, how to become more resilient, and also on a personal level, what are your top recommended tools to boost resilience?
So I think, following on from my SpaceX story, it's failing forward, right? Don't be afraid to fail. Just keep failing forward. Like, what have you learned? You know, every time you fail, you've learned how not to do it, right? So that's just an epic lesson. And always be grateful for any lessons that come your way. Now, like, always ask for help. And I know that this is very, but practice gratitude. Like, practice gratitude for the people you've got around you. Yeah. Practice gratitude for the lessons that that are coming your way. And I always try to say is, like, see the big picture as well, because I was watching a TED talk today, and it was actually really it was perfect for this, because marvel in nature, because we are the chances of us being here now, right here now, in this moment, you being here, on, like, you being born to the parents you were born to, yeah, in this is 1 in 400 trillion. That's the chance. It's like,
yeah,
it's
exactly,
an absolute miracle that we are
exactly
here. It's like,
yeah, that's why we have to be grateful. Yeah, all this.
And and just go and hug a tree. Like, I know it sounds silly, but like, you found it in nature. You found comfort in nature, and it's really important to get out and be out in that. So, but the gratitude, and also I think another big thing is like, what do you wish for? What do you want for yourself? And also identify the obstacle. What's in your way? And you ask for help. Humans are problem solvers. We can't help but solve problems. If you speak to enough people, they will help you. If you say, this is what I want, this is my obstacle, you never know who you're going to speak to. They might just take that obstacle away for you. So, yeah. The more you have that building up, the more resilience you get. It also comes with a bit of life experience too. But the big picture, especially with the children, showing them practicing gratitude and being in nature and having that big picture thinking, I think that's really, really important. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, in what extent can positive psychology be applied in organizational level with work related stress, etc.? Is resiliency a skill that's required in the job market? Yeah, can you
let Maheen go, because I've spoken a lot.
Yeah, Maheen, I will go to Maheen.
Yeah, I would love to answer this. I also want to ask Amal, would it be possible for me to go back and answer the previous question?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Would it be possible that I answer the previous question about tools?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah? Okay, wonderful. Yeah. And then I'd love to talk about organizations next. So Kelly, everything you said resonated with me. I am a strong believer in gratitude and nature helping us to find what we need to do next, and even just give our minds a break, and also failing forward, a big +1, especially in the realm of organizations. So for me, when I think about the tools that I use, I actually I think it's helpful to pause and define what is the goal of what I'm trying to do. And really, these tools are all about helping us return to kind of an equilibrium, right? When we're facing some kind of challenge, we have spikes in cortisol and stress, right? And anxieties and so on. So within the realm of nature, like Kelly said, we actually know from research that if we spend about 120 minutes in a 7-day period outside, whether it's in a green space in our neighborhood or in the forest, that boosts our feelings of health and well-being. And to even add more to that, I'm a strong believer in meditation, and you can take that into meditative walking. So I personally practice meditation, and I follow Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a Zen Buddhist, and one of his students describes this as when we're meditatively walking, we are paying attention to the feeling of our foot touching the ground. What does that feel like? We are smelling the air around us. What aromas are there? What's the quality? We're looking at leaves and the light and the way it's filtering. Are there birds around? Are there insects around? And all of that can help us to increase our sense of awareness, acknowledge our feelings, and even increase our abilities for inner strength. And that's just with meditative walking. Two other tools that I want to share is briefly, grounded optimism is one of my favorites. At its core, grounded optimism is about in the moment when we're facing adversity, we pause and we ask ourselves, when else have I experienced something similar? And what did I do then? And how did that work out? So to Kelly's point about failing forward, we might learn from something we did wrong previously, or we think about what we did well and now we apply it again.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So, can you tell me what are the benefits of positive psychology in the workplace, or if can resilience be applied in organizational level with work related stress, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. So as someone who has studied organizations deeply and how we can both lead individually and at a team level, I love this question. On a team level, we really need to think about what sort of systems are in place. For example, is our team members cross-trained? And is there a knowledge transfer system? Those are at a basic level. Do we have those in place? That increases our resilience. And there's one other item I want to focus on, which is I was listening to a podcast recently, Coaching for Leaders with Dave Stachowiak, and he's interviewing Keith Ferrazzi, and they are discussing this idea of co-elevation. The concept here is that essentially we are building a social contract between individuals on a team to share and create space where we're able to be vulnerable and be adaptable and practice humility. And as leaders, whether we have formal authority or we have informal authority and we're practicing influence, we can ask folks to step into that space. And when they don't, if we have formal authority, then we would nudge a certain process that helps to build humility and vulnerability. And the results there are that we boost our insights as a team and we come to those faster than other teams would.
And what about resiliency? Is it required in the job market as a skill? Yeah, can you tell me, Maheen?
Absolutely. Resilience on an individual level will help us not only with the very difficult process of finding a position, but also within a position. So if you're someone who's looking for a role, anytime you see phrases like a fast-paced environment or a high-growth environment or a startup, we know that we need to be resilient and able to constantly shift in these spaces. Similarly, if you are working for a not-for-profit or a non-governmental organization, we also know we need to be adaptable and resilient because every time a team member changes.
And flexible also.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. What can you say about this point, Kelly?
Well, I'm a project manager and a change manager, and it's actually building other people's resiliency around you. I feel like because I'm constantly delivering change, and I have to. And the one thing that we always say in our team is that change is BAU. The one thing that will never change is that everything's going to be constantly changing, right? So we need to rest and sit happy in that. But I think. And this is like bringing it right down to a level, but something I found really helpful that I never actually did at work. You're in a meeting and you're talking to people in a meeting, and you can see people starting to get a little bit distracted, or you're delivering something, because often when you're in these positions, you're the messenger, right? It's not your work necessarily, it's not your message, but you're just the messenger, and that people shoot the messenger, right? So it's like, so you can see people get disengaged, and really like tune in to how they may be feeling and just ask it, because I don't think in the professional environment we talk about feelings very much. And I've started doing this, and I'm like, how are you feeling? How does this make you feel? Oh, well, I'm overwhelmed. Well, now I know I can work with that. Previously you were just looking disengaged. Now I can work with your overwhelm, and I'll break it down to smaller chunks, or I'll take it away and I'll you're a visual learner, you're this, I'll create something to make it easier for you. Sometimes, you know, you just even get, how you feeling? They're like, I think this is a waste of time. Right, well then let's not do it. But it's just having that it's just being connected, because I think in work, like we can be also so busy, and we can just be trying to get over the line, and it's just taking that little bit of a breath, you know, back to meditating. You know, like when you meditate, you learn, it's just taking that, the meditation gives you that tool where you can just take a moment before you jump in, right? It just creates a little bit of space before you have to react. So don't react, don't take it personally if they're not reacting the way you want them to, you know. So like, just take that moment of space and then ask them how they're feeling, what they need. You know, and I think you know, in the workplace there's a lot of pressures on us to perform to a certain level, and we feel often we can just immediately jump into, oh, I'm not performing as well as you would like me to. You take it personally. If you take it personally, you're actually taking something away from them, to, you know, because you're not serving them as you should, because you're too busy in your own head, right? So just take a moment, reset. And that takes, you know, that's like resiliency on a very small level, but it makes a big difference, right? That's how you get the big projects across the line, those big difficult projects that people don't want to touch. Like, just tuning in.
Yeah, very, very interesting. What would you like to see in the world of positive psychology in the years to come, Kelly?
I'd like it to not exist, really, because it should just be psychology, right? There shouldn't be positive, and you know, psychology's always been based on what's wrong. You know, so if I say to people, oh, I'm seeing my therapist, they're like, what's wrong? Well, what, does there have to be something wrong because I'm asking for help? Like, you know, so has something need to happen? So it would be good for it just to be, you know, this is psychology. We're all human beings. We're all learning to be. You know, we're living the full catastrophe of life. Like Buddha said, like, living is suffering, right? So, like, but we're learning how to grow with it. So, like, let's just make it, you know, let it just be so ingrained in everyone and everything that we don't have to call it positive psychology. It's just here, and that's what we practice on a daily basis with each other.
Yeah, it has to be a routine, a daily routine.
Yeah, and nothing has to be wrong, you know. Like, I feel like everyone should have a therapist, you know, just to help navigate the, you know, it's always nice to have someone else to help you, you know, reframe it, you know.
Yeah, I believe that everyone has to take positive psychology courses in positive psychology, because this is something that helps us in our daily life.
And at school, you know, like, we should be teaching the children before stuff starts happening. Teach them to meditate. The other day I had an experience, and it was a very emotive, triggering experience. And I was with a friend, and she didn't have a meditation practice, and I do have a meditation practice. And the difference was worlds apart. And I just, it was great to have that to fall back on. And it really got me through. And I managed to lay out the welcome mat to all the negative emotions that were coming up. And it's just welcoming them and sitting with them and letting them pass. And it's like, what are they trying to tell you? But to see the difference between someone that doesn't, she was like, what do you do? And I was like, I meditate. And you don't realize that every day, just those little 10 minutes or 15 minutes, what that does to you, because then you've got that in your back pocket. So just, you know, don't just do it when there's something wrong. Keep at it every day, because then it's there. Yeah,
exactly. So, Maheen, what would you like to see in the world of positive psychology in the future?
Yeah, Kelly, everything you said again resonates. It's truly, I was thinking of sort of the most succinct way to say it, and I think it's just an increase in awareness and availability of these tools. And I love the way that you said it, both of you, right? That it shouldn't have to be positive psychology, it's just simply a human need that we have someone who is there to support us in increasing our awareness and the tools at our fingertips. I also specifically, as someone who's based in the US and has worked in Latin America, would love to see employers and specifically in the US, unions making these tools available, increasing awareness.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you add something about resilience, Kelly?
So having recently suffered a loss, it was interesting. It was a good I don't know, a place to put my new tools, you know, to put my it was an opportunity to for me to actually use the tools that I'd learned. And I'd say, you know, like, just always just be kind to yourself. Sit, like, being resilient isn't just pushing the bad stuff away or going, I can, you know, I'm going to get up, it's being kind to yourself and actually sitting with the emotions, sitting with those and understanding them and letting them come up. Like, so-called negative emotions, I don't think there's anything such thing as a negative emotion, right? They're there to teach you something. It's telling you something. Just as your body, you've got a pain in your body, listen to your body, listen to your emotions. What is it telling you? And don't be scared of them, you know? An emotion, it's a sensation, it will pass. But if it's there, sit in it, you know? Sit in it and see what it's saying. And then what if you allow that, then I don't think it lingers, you know? Then I think then you can move on and you can, you know, and then you create the space. And there's the Prophet, I don't know the book, there's a book called The Prophet, and he said that, you know, there's no joy without sorrow, right? And it's, you know, so everything's got its light and dark side. And full catastrophe living, let's embrace all of it, you know? So it doesn't mean that you know, if something happened yesterday that was bad, you can't. Being resilient, it doesn't mean you have to get up today and do it. You know, if you need a day in bed, have a day in bed, schedule it, but don't let it be a month, right? Like, go for a walk in the woods and hug a tree, you know.
I like what you said. We have to be kind to ourselves, and just we can be flexible. We adapt changes, and we face challenges. We can be very kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
So
it's a necessity in this world, because it's a hard world.
Exactly. And what about you, Maheen? Can you add something about resilience?
Yes, I'd love to add two things here. One is we talked about some tools earlier, and I want to say that they are unique to each of us, right? Just like we will experience our feelings in our own unique patterns, the tools also will work differently for many of us. And we can also layer the tools. So it's important to understand kind of that there's a full range more than what we've talked about today. And sort of a final thought here is one of my favorite quotes, actually, is by Juanita Brown, who is the co-creator of Conversation Cafe. It's a tool we use in organization development to enhance conversation at all levels. And the quote is, "All great changes begin in conversation." I love this quote because it's very clear how it applies to maybe one-to-one conversations or across teams, right? That we need to seek to understand, as Kelly said earlier, lean in with curiosity. And on an individual level, when we're thinking about individual resilience, I love this quote because it reminds us to pause and reflect. And then we can begin to understand what sort of internal journey we're actually on, which can lead us to acknowledge our present reality and then maybe even some individual insights.
Would you like to leave our viewers with one final message before we leave, Maheen or Kelly?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I will go after to you,
Maheen.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I've already shared. I just shared mine, actually.
Okay.
I just say, just again, just marvel in nature and the miracle that we are here talking now, and you know what a opportunity this is to be on this beautiful planet. You know, just get out there and enjoy it. You know. So yeah, and just also, you know, being kind to yourself, but be kind to others. But as Maheen was saying, it's just taking the moment to, you know, if someone's rude to you, like, what kind of day have they had? Like, what's made them like that? So it's just taking that moment, right? It's always just a little moment to be kind to yourself, be kind to others. So that's all. Yeah.
At the end of this panel, I would like to sincerely thank you, guys, for this enjoyable and beneficial discussion that will surely and greatly help our global audience. Also, thank you to our viewers for watching, and be sure to follow our guests via their bio links that you will find in their panels. Flyers on all and for any questions you may have, just place them anytime in the comment section below and we will get back to you. I want to add something. I am very happy to be with you guys, and I can't thank you enough for being here, and I hope to see you in Europe or in Egypt very soon, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Nice to
Thank
meet
you so
you.
much.
Nice to
Likewise.
meet you. Thank you. Thank you too. Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.